Coming up, a segment from KTWU, your source for public television. Afterwards, don't forget to visit ktwu.org to make a pledge to help make more local programming like this.
For our next story, we head to the Century II Performing Arts Center in Wichita, where some special guests came to take part in an event celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Wichita Grand Opera. Among them was the legendary opera star, Samuel Ramey.
Nice to be back. Always nice to be back.
As he approached his 69th birthday, Samuel Ramey was pleased to return to his native state to sing with fellow Wichita State alumni Alan Held and Joyce DiDonato.
Joyce and I are both native Kansans. Alan's not a native Kansan, but he went to Wichita State. He got his master's at Wichita State, and I think he taught here in Wichita for a couple of years before he went to New York. And so that's the idea, was bringing the Kansans back, but it sort of started with we were all at the Met together.
In speaking of the Met, he's referring to the Metropolitan Opera in New York City.
A group of us we were all at the Met together. Alan, Joyce, there's another guy named Brian Frutiger, a tenor who went to Wichita State, and there's a lady in the orchestra for Wichita Stater. So we all met one night and had a picture taken out in front of the Met, and it was sent to the alumni magazine or something, and it appeared in there. And I think from that, Parvan got the idea for the 10th anniversary of bringing the Kansans back to do this concert.
We have three superstars from the opera world, not only at the Met but around the globe. Joyce DiDonato, Samuel Ramey, Alan Held.
I grew up in Colby in the 40s and 50s, 60s. My family was kind of musical. I had two brothers and a sister, and they all sang, but nobody went into music. My mother always hoped somebody would pursue music in some way, and so I was the youngest, so I was her last hope. So she was always very happy that I pursued music in some way, and of course happy with what success I've had at it.
The success that Sam Ramey has had with his singing career is really quite impressive. He's become an international star of the opera world, performing countless roles at all the major venues.
So help us, la la la. Well, we think you are swell. Oh, say, can you tell we're in a spell under the letter L?
As his recently published biography notes, Samuel Ramey has become the American bass.
I just was always fascinated with bass voices, so I always hoped when my voice changed that I'd become a bass, so fortunately it worked out.
It worked out so well that Samuel Ramey became the most highly recorded bass of all time, generating dozens of albums featuring both classical operas as well as show tunes and American classics.
Most of the recordings were done in London. Abbey Road Studios. I did a lot of recording at Abbey Road Studios. I did one recording I was working on, and they opened up the Beatles studio, and we got to go in because it's like preserved. It's like a shrine, you know. And they let us go in there and look around. And yeah, actually, the guy I was working with as a conductor sat down at the piano, and we sang Beatles songs in the Beatles studio. It was great fun.
Although he'd come a long way from Colby, Kansas, singing Beatles songs in that studio was somewhat reminiscent of his teenage years when he sang in a small trio.
We used to perform at school dances and things like that, you know. In my high school years, I was a big Pat Boone, Elvis Presley, you know. I sang a lot of Pat Boone songs.
When he graduated high school in 1960, he headed off to K-State, thinking that he might become a music teacher. But then his plans changed, and he ended up in Central City, Colorado, where he landed a summer job with an opera company.
I heard about the Central City Opera, and this is when I first got interested in opera. So I went out to my local radio station and made a tape and sent it off, and lo and behold, they took me. And so I went out to Central City, this was summer 1963, to sing in the chorus, and found myself in an opera before I had ever even seen one. So, and I very naively, after that summer, that experience that summer, I thought, wow, this is great. I think I'd like to be an opera singer. So and that's when there were some singers, some kids in the chorus that summer in Central City that were students here at Wichita State. And they sort of recruited me to Wichita State. So I started Wichita State for the following fall.
So many memories. This was my wife and I's first home after we were married, and every time I come back, it really is like coming back home. And 30 years ago, I mean, that's before Joyce was even born. And it was before Sam, well, nothing's before Sam, but seriously though, in my first week at Wichita State, I went to the library, and there was a copy of Opera News, our favorite magazine for opera singers, there in the library, and on the cover was Sam Ramey. And I mean, that's pretty terrifying for a young student to come in, and you read all the things about his relationship to Wichita and to Wichita State, and I figured if it was good enough for Sam Ramey, it was good enough for me.
It took me a long time to get through college because I was poor and had to work most of the time. You know, I just went part-time most of the time. So, yeah, I was here for 5 years, almost 6 years, I think.
Not long after graduating, Sam made the leap to New York City. His mother saw him off at the bus station.
She was very nervous about the whole thing. Well, so was I. But fortunately, I had a number of friends, actually from Wichita State, that had preceded me to New York. So I had friends there to stay with when I first went, and to sort of get me acclimated to New York. But I just loved New York from the minute I got off the bus.
New York and the opera world would soon come to love Sam Ramey too, but he still feels a strong connection to the Midwest.
And I still think of myself as a Midwesterner at heart, and I never left my Kansas roots behind me.